Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host Rob. As you can see, I'm hanging out with the Twitch chat right now as we record a video which is incredibly exciting. This is a video where we're going to go into detail looking at the player performance rankings from the TSN stats. So, Rob and Ziggy, the stats crew, best crew, coolest crew, they not only collect faction information, i.e. how armies are doing, and I've already covered that in a previous video, they also collect how players are doing, which is really fun. We have a couple of specifications about how we collect that data or what that data is, but what we get to do is we get to track players over the course of a season. This works really well when we're working something like the Age of Sigmar World Championships, but in addition, it also just means you get some bragging rights and some internet points amongst your friends, which I think is really cool. And it's just really fun to do. You get to know these players, you get to hear about how they're doing, and you kind of get to keep track of them. And it means a lot to me because I'm kind of in awe of these people who do really well at events all the time, especially the person in first place, because I've met him several times and he's just a treasure. So they're not only great competitors, they're also great people, which is cool. Okay, so we're going to go into this information now, but before we get into this information, I was going to shout out quickly how we do this. So we take your top 6 results over the course of a GHB. The last GHB was 6 months long, but as we know, we had 157 events over that GHB. We take your top 6 results. Now, some people might be like, oh, Rob, I can't get to 6 events in the course of, a 6-month period. It's only one a month. And I understand it, a lot of people are very busy, but I think if you consider yourself to be a tournament gamer, you probably want to go to as many as you can. So it kind of makes sense. So we like to have, I had to get argued down from 8. So the stats guys were like, no, we're going to take it down to 6, Rob. A lot of people really want it to be 4, and on the Honest Wargamer website, on the TSN stats, there is the option to choose by 4, but I don't really like that because I feel like you can kind of cherry pick the 4 you want to go to. 6 is a little bit of a broader spectrum, which is good. So we take your top 6 events, and we also base it on the size of the event as well. So you get points for a win, and even if you go to an event that's very small, you'll still get onto the stats show as long as that event was not using any particularly heavy comp and it ran over the course of 2 days and had a minimum of 5 rounds, and it's 2,000 points. So we don't do one-day events, we don't do team events, because the pairing system generally kind of creates a skew as well. We don't take that information into account, so it's just one person, 2-day events, 5 rounds, or there have been a couple of 1-day 5-round events, which is pretty crazy. Alright, so I think we should just jump straight in. We've got these by region, and we've got these by just general overall information. So let's just jump straight in, shall we? And let's pop this in, because this is super fun to do. Looking at the top 10 players, the 10 best performing players in the world last GHB. In first place, from Texas, Gavin Greiger. Now, Gavin has got a famous saying where you stand on circles and win games. People always ask him, Gavin, how do you do so well? And it is by standing on circles. He has performed with loads of different factions. He has got Daughters of Cain twice, Seraphon 3 times, and Cities of Sigmar in his repertoire. He only beat Jeremy in second place by attending events that are just larger than Jeremy. But he has a perfect record, 30-0, which is incredible. He's from Texas, and he represents Harambe's Heroes, which are a gaming club down there. He's also part of the Tough Crowd group as well. So shout out to them. A wonderful person. I got to meet him several times, talk to him. Pretty gentle, really thoughtful. I got to last year see him play a game against Nate Trentinelli, who's just another really excellent player, where I don't think either of them spoke for about 45 minutes. They just silently pushed models around. He's just a great dude, and a really great representation of our hobby. Just a nice person who is incredibly competitive, does really well, and is really nice about it. So shout out to Gavin for just doing really well. Don't forget, there's a podcast, Harambe's Heroes, and then he also features on loads of stuff that comes out of Texas. There's like the Weird Knobs streams, there's loads of stuff. So go check out those if you get the chance. In second place, also representing North America, is Jeremy Vissier. Although I'm sure the French team would love to claim him, as he's of French kind of like origin. Normally of the West Coast, he is moving over to the East Coast. Jeremy, probably one of my favourite gamers as well. Plays loads of different armies. Fireslayers, uniquely to him, has played some crazy Fireslayer lists. Is always an early adopter of armies, specifically if they're dwarfs. Did really well with KO as soon as the KO book came out as well. And as soon as GHBs happen, and he pops out. He also has a YouTube channel as well you could check out called Barak. Oh, I'm going to feel bad for him not remembering it now. Where he does some really thoughtful and interesting deep dives. He's a great gamer on the tabletop, really excellent, really fun, really engaging person. Like, he's one of those people that when he starts talking, it's time to sit down and start listening. Very much like Gavin. And he's just very forthright with his opinion, and he's got lots of really good stuff to say. Another great representative of our hobby. Now, in third place, representing England, and this is actually really huge. Jeremy and Gavin have done really well in previous GHBs before. They're what I would consider to be perennially good and expert tabletop gamers, if not some of the best players in the whole wide world, and consistently so. Freddie is like an absolute up-and-comer, not far from me. He's out Derby way, which is only like 30 minutes, 45 minutes where I'm at, over in the UK. Freddie plays in his little local gaming club and then just occasionally just wanders out into the wide world and just smashes people up 5-0 with loads of different lists as well. He's a Sigmar is one of the ones he does really well, and famously is one of those people, very much like Jeremy, would run a load of foot characters in Fire Slayers, which was quite unique. Freddie would play a load of Paladors in Cities of Sigmar, which is quite unique as well. He also played Beasts of Chaos when Beasts of Chaos were really good and did really well with those, but it's fair to say he's made quite a few armies his own and has done really well with it. So he's kind of a newcomer to that leaderboard, and I think that's really worth noting, that not only are some of these names the names that you're going to see year in, year out, they're also fairly new to being in the competitive scene, and I think that's brilliant, so shout out to Freddie. In fourth place, Emma Mangles. Emma's great. Emma plays loads of different armies all the time. She sometimes will get people on Twitter to just choose which army she's going to go play, and she consistently does incredibly well with those armies. She plays stuff off meta, she chooses different army styles, she is not forwards and coming backwards about her opinions on how armies work, and she loves making memes about how all the different armies play. I've got a lot of time for Emma, and I got a lot of love for Emma, and she does really well on the tabletop, and I think like more and more she's really engaging with playing, like being a part of that community, which is great, so shout out to her. Caleb Waters, just playing really excellent Warhammer as well. He always plays Tzeentch. Tzeentch. Normally Tzeentch with an incarnate, but like Caleb is a good example of just repeatedly using the same army time and time again, pushing them forward, being aggressive, and understanding how his army plays in every situation, in every matchup. He's already, in the new JHB, already racked up a result with his Tzeentch as well, and he's just going to consistently keep performing with that army. And I think that's actually something really worth noting, that while a couple of the players like in the just above him on that leaderboard do flit around between different armies, Caleb consistently pushes the same army around and does really well with it, and I think there's something to be said about that level of consistency that does really well. That's also true for Phil, again from the UK, again one of our newer players really in the past couple of years coming up. Don't forget, 6th best performing player in the world. So when I say new, I'm talking about like 6th best performing player in the world. That's huge. Yeah, 27, a draw, and 2 losses. Generally likes to play Slaves to Darkness, but will push around anything he gets the opportunity to do so. I think Phil had a crazy season last GHB, where he got 3 5-0s over the course of 3 weekends in a row, with 3 different armies, which was bonkers. Loves the old combination of Arcane Tome and Master Magic. Not sure how he's feeling right now, but Phil's a really excellent player. Great part. He got a great gaming club. Another great human being to meet. And then you got Nicholas Walters, Caleb's brother, usually pushing Iron Jaws around, running around using them. They normally travel to events together, again based in the USA. Has lots of, does really well with those Iron Jaws as well, especially when they've been dropping in the win rates, but it's kept up that consistent pressure with that army, which is fun to see. A bit of a legend, Ronja, over in Sweden. Now, if you notice, Ronja's actually got a better result, win rate result, 28 wins, 2 losses, than Caleb, Phil, and Nicholas. But because she's based in Sweden, they generally don't have events that are as large, and therefore they don't get quite as many tournament points in TSN rankings. I know that might seem a little bit unfair, but it's our way of making sure people don't just go to like 6-person events and just snipe loads of points. So that's how it works. But Ronja's, if you've ever listened to anything about Age of Sigmar, phenomenal. if you've ever been to the Age of Sigmar World Championships or you watched the stream from that, Ronya has been to 2 Age of Sigmar World Championships. She's played in the singles twice and she's played in the teams twice. That's given her opportunity to play 22 games, of which she's only ever lost 1 game ever. She was undefeated last year, and then this year she dropped 1 game. So 21 out of 22 at the OS World Championships is probably one of the most phenomenal records of all time. And then this season, 28-2 is also amazing as well. An ex-War Machine Hordes player. She's got some really solid on-tabletop experience, and she's really dedicated and focused when she plays, which is cool. Anthony Trentinelli, what's not to say about the Trentinelli brothers? Anthony's wonderful, thoughtful, insightful. He knows loads of stuff about almost every army. He's always considering what armies to play. He plays Slanesh a lot. Is really insightful when it comes to armies like that. Plays them in very different ways to how I think other people play it as well. Has a really solid on-tabletop presence. Is really forthright. Excellent little player. Just a really solid human being. So just does really well. Plays loads of different armies as well. Really is like not obsessive. That's not the right word. But focused. He's a very focused on tabletop player, and he's focused before he gets to the tabletop, which I think is really good. So shout out to him. Now, I don't know loads about Mringank Jar, unfortunately, so I apologise about that. But 27-3, that's great work for him, and I'm really proud of you. So great work for you. That's great. Tom Guan, I know loads about. Tom Guan also in joint 10th place, our last place, 27-3. Tom Guan plays consistently all around the world, loads of different armies. Famously ruined Iron Blasters the single week that they were released. Similarly, recently has been playing lots of zombies. Will jump between loads of different armies all the time. Tom's favourite quote is that he cannot believe people want to play 3 hours of Warhammer. If you make him play more than 1 hour of Warhammer, I think it makes him very upset. Very, very upset. Famously won a game at the Age of Sigmar World Championships by being tabled in round 3 on twists and turns, but still winning the event because he'd claimed all the objective on the first 2. Just a superstar. Really great. Really great and really solid. And 27-3 is really impressive for Tom. Let's look at some regionals. USA won't be a surprise to many people. We featured many of them in the top 10. Gavin in first place, Jeremy in second, Emma in third, Caleb and Nicholas. The brothers really smashing it up in 4th and 5th place. Anthony Trentinelli, Tom Guan. But the two we're talking about at the bottom, Juan Noah Singh, great human being, my personal friend. He's got more and more kind of like focused into the game state, which I think is really interesting. He's now what I'd like to say now that I think he's in his jazz phase. I think Gavin and Jeremy, Emma as well, are definitely in their jazz phase. I'm not really sure how I can explain this other than they're like now in the flow state with gaming. I think the top 3 definitely are, and I think Noah, Tom Guan also as well, but I think Noah's also entered his flow state. And what I mean by that is he's now really experimenting. He's running loads of different lists, loads of different armies, thinking through some crazy stuff and trying to make it work. He obviously just is off the back of winning the Las Vegas Open earlier in the year, which is a huge win, winning it with Beasts of Chaos, and also part of the USA national team, and now he's in a place where I think he doesn't really have anything to prove on the tabletop, and so now he's starting to really experiment, and I think that kind of pushes you to a level where Gavin, Jeremy and Emma are, which I think is a really good place to be. Carl Ong, what's not to say about this person other than he's not short in anyone's estimations. He is a large titan of a character, and his win rate is very big, which is really impressive for someone of such a well-constructed, svelte form. Carl's brilliant. Part of the seasonal war crew, make really great battle reports. If you get the chance to go check them out, he is always experimenting with different lists, continuously gets really good sports votes, just a really solid player. Plays KO a lot, Flesh Eater Courts. I think Carl was one of like my first experiences of really having to be like, what is happening with Flesh Eater Courts in the United States of America? And it was Carl. So sometimes a bit of an early adopter, sometimes a bit of like a leader. I don't know if it's like prepping for battle reports and stuff that really helps him focus on those things, but he's a great player, great person, really excellent. Next, we're going to go over to continental Europe. That's right, UK not a part of that. So continental Europe. And we have got a bunch of great players in there. Colin Claren, playing at Worlds for Germany, is our German, and he's in first place, 23 a draw and a loss. Now, it's quite fun to break these down into regions because, as you can see, continental Europe doesn't tend to have as many events as we might see in the USA. It's a great question as to why maybe we don't. Now, for instance, we know the French have lots of events, but they don't necessarily submit all of their results to us, or we don't necessarily get all that info. So it'd be fun in the future, especially if there are more events in continental Europe than we necessarily get information for, to try to get all that information so we can make sure these are as relevant as possible. Because as we know, looking at the Age of Sigmar World Championships, while the United Kingdom and let's say the USA and Canada, I guess we include, get a lot of media coverage because there's a lot of podcasts and YouTube shows and those things coming from those communities, a lot of these are done in language. French have a massive community, the Italian and the Spanish have really large communities as well, but we don't necessarily hear about all of their events and we don't hear about all of their players, and it'd be more fun to do that in the future. So going through what we do have, and also to see them running more events as well. To see what we do have, we've got Colin from Germany. He's in first place. Congratulations to him. Vincenzo Naka and then Luca Canal, both of whom are based in Italy, in second and third place. We've got a couple of our French players, Spoon and Milladin, in there as well. 13 and 2 for Milladin, and Spoon on his 17 with 7 losses, so he's been playing. And then Daniel Dampo Pommer, also of Germany. So it'd be really fun to get our Germans are getting lots of events in and playing lots. It'd be fun to see, especially France, which I know we've got a big community in there, Netherlands, all of those inputted into the stats, and see more events from them, because there's some incredible players, and the world champions are from Europe. So let's find more information about these players in the future. That'd be great. Now we're going to go over to our top 10 players in Oceania. So this is effectively Australia and New Zealand. Now, Australia do have more events than New Zealand, obviously. And the the Australian community is a little bit more spread out than some of our other countries as well. But they still get a load of events. There's loads of good content comes out of Australia. And so just really good. And they've got great wargaming chops. Current world champions of 40k are Australian. Alexander Cron in first place. Cron loves Kharadron Overlords, loves them, but has really diversified over the past few years, playing a variety of different armies. And so we've seen him play lots of different stuff, but he has obviously been pushing KO around since the new book came out. Kieran Coates, I don't know. I'm sorry, but in second place with 24.06. I'm sure I do know, but I forgot. Patrick Nevin, Big Pat, playing loads of different armies as well. Pretty serious as well as a player from everything I've heard. Nathan Thompson and Gary Chen also represent Australia, and it's down in 6th place. James Struthers absolutely dominating the New Zealand scene. 23 wins, 6 losses, doing really, really well. John McGrath and Joel Graham, both based in Australia as well, with some pretty positive results. And then Ryan, also from New Zealand, 21 wins, 8 losses. So a great job all told. We do have enough results for them to get out of 30s. But, more events would mean more results, and this would be really good. But shout out to Cron, currently the champion of Oceania. Now we're going to go over to Scandinavia. And this is arguably one of the toughest metas around. A couple of different national teams around there beating each other up, especially at Worlds. But there's some really, really, really solid players here. And in no surprise to me, but an absolute superstar, Geir Videld, in first place. The leader or one of the organisers of 2D6 Wargaming Club. Based in Norway, so he's out of Norway. In fact, our top 3 are all based in Norway, probably because of the sheer amount of events they have. But Sweden, which we'll talk about in a minute, also has a lot of events, but Gear doing incredibly well. Really solid on tabletop. His micro on the tabletop is really good. I got to see him play a couple of times. Huge fan of Gear. He's great. Benjamin Fludder, also really great. Hates how I pronounce his name. Thinks I'm an idiot. I apologise, Benjamin. But plays, Gear, Benjamin, Danny, Ula, Gunny Vatland, all these lads, all from Norway, play a variety of different armies in pretty much the same club. They rotate armies, they play different stuff. You often will see some pretty unique army styles coming out of them, which is interesting, or at least they'll be at the forefront of early adoption for these different armies as well, which is just really excellent. Then Kalis Konstantinos is our kind of top Swedish player out of the group. And he's just Really, really solid. Loves Khorne, plays Khorne a lot, and gets some really surprising results. Very similar, which is interesting because he's dedicated himself to a Chaos God, to what we see coming out of the USA. He's just committed pretty much to playing Khorne a lot of the time, and he does really well with it, even when the book wasn't particularly good. And now he's got a stronger book. It's quite interesting to see what he's able to do with it. Jesper Melander is a devil man, based out of Sweden, of the Asylum Wargaming Club. If you want to go check it out, they run events all the time. He's really solid on the tabletop. He's also part of the Malarkey group. So Malarkey is kind of like a narrative wargaming website, where you can do all sorts of things in there, track your games, do pairings. So he's also part of that community as well. But he's just a really solid tabletop player. Lasse Kalberg, also based in Sweden. Oh no, that's the one I'm not sure about. Lasse, though, great player, does loads of stuff. Ronja, we talked about, just 11 out of 10. And then shout out to all the rest. William Carlberg and Christian Wenberg for, again, some great event results. The UK and Ireland, top 10. A list of names of people you'll always know really well. And in first place, it's absolutely delightful to see Freddie Leggett. Deserves that first place there. Look at that big crown on his head and the smile of a champ. Seats of Sigmar, Beasts of Chaos. And I've already talked about Freddie a bunch, but just doing really great. Phil Marshall, talked about him as well. Just doing great in second place. Mike Stewart in third place. Mike doesn't necessarily get out as much onto the international scene, but Mike has posted really solid results this GHB. The GHB previous as well also posted some incredibly solid results. At one point, Mike was the top of the leaderboard for the TSN stats for a good portion of time. Really solid player, really excellent. Plays Seraphon, plays a bunch of different armies actually. He started with Seraphon and really tried to find his feet with loads of different armies as well. You've got Matt Davis, the Math Mallow, pushing all sorts of different armies around. Andy Hughes, Hazel, first time in the list. Shout out to Hazel, doing great for her, especially pushing loads of big Stonehorn monster trucks around, beating some pretty big players, like taking some scalps in a pretty good season. Simon Weekly, formerly Team Wales, plays a bunch of different lists, especially lists that get to roll loads of different dice. Played loads of Spawn in this Beasts of Chaos list, in the new Beasts of Chaos book, and has done really well with that. And I'm sure we'll see lots of other lists like that in the future. Adam Mumford, my good and wonderful friend, 25, 2 and 3, likes to play as much as he can. Just had a dad now, so Adam Dadford. Doesn't get an opportunity to play as much, but plays really solid armies, Beasts of Chaos, all sorts of different stuff. He'll pick up anything, try it out. Him and Matt are kind of like, like young grinders. They'll just do anything. They'll just be like, oh, do you want to play like 6 sharks? Like, yeah, I'll do that. Oh, do you want to play Alariel? Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Like, they'll pick up anything and try it for a weekend, right? Which is really fun. Matt Goldsborough, the Shuffler, 26 and 4. Matt is a perennial Age of Sigmar player. Plays as much as he can, as often as he can. Plays loads of different armies. The Vibe is what I call him a lot of the time. Matt the Vibe, obviously been known as a Shuffler as well. Just a delight. And then Dan Arnold. It's great to see Dan in 10th place. Captain of Team Wales. What a superstar. Amazing. Recently came to my event, New GHB, had a bit of a shocker. But amazing to see Dan Arnold on that list as well. In fact, it's amazing to see Dan Arnold on the list. He's a super nice guy, really fun, plays some really solid, really fair Warhammer, and that's a really healthy English top 10 as well. You got a lot of very young, very new players to the scene and the community. A lot of like those early adopters who play constantly, and yeah, you got a really, mainly good like top list there as well. So it's great. I guess that's it. Shout out to Dodrin for donating 5 gift subs in the chat. Loads of love to you, superstar. Playing well at events is something really worthwhile doing. It's not the be all and end all. I would really like to track best sports votes one day. I think that'd be really fun. Who's the most sporting player in the world? Let's go. I want 11 sports votes this year. That'd be cool. It's really hard, really, to express how close some of those games probably were as well. Age of Sigmar, the points differential between these armies is really, really close. We also have the priority roll, the double turn. These players, by the way, consistently do well. and therefore the double turn really kind of isn't a factor. But it also is a factor as well, because some of those games will have really turned around if priority had go one way or priority had gone another way. Dom probably would win best sports of everything. That's true. But it's great to see. Thank you to Ziggy and Rob again for producing this for these players, because it's absolutely brilliant to see these players getting the opportunity to showcase that they've done really well at something they're super passionate about. It's super cool if you become the world champion of a thing, or even if you're just the best in your country at your hobby for a little bit. And all of the people at the top of those lists are people who I know personally and who I know are really nice. And I don't think we can really ask for better. I don't really know what the other game systems are like. I don't know if 40k is the same and everyone at the top is really lovely. But I do know that that's true for Age of Sigmar, which is wicked. So thank you to all of them. Thank you to Ziggy and Rob for producing those stats. And I hope everyone has a great season. We've got a year now to see who's going to be the best of this GHB. So it's going to be pretty fun. And yeah, if you get the chance to meet these people, or if you get the event to run, if you get the chance to run events or send us event results, you should do so, because Age of Sigmar is growing. Probably should mention that as well in this video. Age of Sigmar increased by 50% in event attendance and also the number of events that happened compared to last year. I think we have, let me just double check for you right here, because I think that's super worth talking about. Because there are 5,434 players in our stats. So that's amazing. That's over just the past 6 months. 5,000 competitive Age of Sigmar players around the world, only at 2-day events. So it doesn't include 1-day events. It doesn't include anything like narrative or teams or doubles or any of those things. So the tournament going Age of Sigmar community runs 5,000 plus. I think if you take into account 1-day events and maybe just a bunch of other stuff, you probably got 10,000 or more people playing competitive Age of Sigmar or some form of Age of Sigmar, which is incredible. It's incredible to know that there's that many people playing, enjoying things that we all love and are passionate about. So shout out to all those people that did really well. Shout out to Ziggy and Rob one last time, because they're the best. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Comment, like, subscribe. Thanks very much.